So, Mr. President, I bring you your children, descendants of the formerly enslaved. They have waited over 400 years to return the spirits of their ancestors back home to Africa. When the children of Africa were taken out of Africa as slaves, all they ever wanted to do was to come back home to Africa. Each and every one of them that you see, many of them are coming to Africa for the first time. They're bringing with them the spirits of their ancestors to put them to rest here in Burkina Faso. And that's one mission number one.
Hi guys, welcome back once again to my YouTube channel. I'm B-Boy. Remember, if it is for the first time you're coming across my video, don't forget to like this video, subscribe and share. Okay guys, in today's clip is all about President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso and Dr. Arikana. They are welcoming all black Americans back home to Africa, back to their motherland, back to Burkina Faso. And they are welcoming all blacks from Caribbeans, all black from the diaspora to feel back home, to come and to come to their home, to their ancestral land where they came from, because you all know during the early slave trade a lot of black people were taken from Africa and they were taken to this western country. So President Ibrahim Traore and Dr. Arikana, they are welcoming all black Americans to Burkina Faso. Kindly watch this clip till the end and then you come back for more discussion.
Where black people are being hunted like wild animals. But that white man was comfortable, that white police officer was quite comfortable, looking so relaxed with his knee on George's neck, killing him slowly for 10 minutes, hands in his pocket like no big deal. I feel the hopelessness. I feel the exasperation. I feel the tiredness. My question to the African heads of states: what can we do to bring hope to your children who are in the diaspora?
They surely told you that it is an unvisitable country. They told you that it's death here, it's war, there is only negative things, and Burkina is called black. That here, only blood and weapons flow, that's what is said elsewhere. Thank God you arrived safely. You were able to be in Bobo Dioulasso. You've lived with us. Our culture is what binds us Africans. You were able to commune with many other nationalities who came to celebrate with us. Everything went very well. Now you are in Ouagadougou, and I hope that you are very well received, very well housed, and that you managed to commune with your brothers here. This is an important message that you are sending to everyone. And now you will be the ambassadors of this message when you are at home. That Burkina is very friendly. We live in Burkina Faso. What they want to make people believe is not Burkina. This is what they draw to get people to flee Burkina, and they depict all of Africa like that. For them, Africa is misery. Africa is famine. Africa is war. But it's them who are responsible for this war. We need to unite, but they have always been there to divide us, to be able to reign on us through slavery. Our ancestors experienced it, and until today, we have it fed up in our flesh, but it continues. Our great people were deported, tortured, and again when they had their war, we supported them, but they paid us in monkey money. Others were killed when they tried to stake their claim. Several of them died in their village as a result of the war. Never recognized the work of the African. Our mission is first of all to awaken Africa and do better, so that you from the diaspora can make people understand what Africa is. When I see you, united in this association, I feel even more proud, because that's all we are asking for today. Our fight is to be able to unite, because united we are strong, divide we are weak.
on est faible. Ils ont toujours travaillé à nous diviser.
They have always worked to divide us, so I urge you to spread the message so that Africa can unite.
Nous avons la chance ou la malchance.
We have been lucky or unlucky enough to live through war for several years,
Et à un moment donné, il fallait dire
and at some point, we had to say enough is enough, that we are fed up. We have taken our responsibilities, and we realize today more than ever that we were right to take our responsibilities. Because these armies that were installed here were never able at any time to monitor our territory, to see the terrorists who came to kill us and leave with all the means they had when we asked them to leave.
Being here in the country of the upright man is a dream come true. To President Traore, the reincarnation of Thomas Sankara, President Traore, who has led the struggle to complete the unfinished business that was started by our ancestors and our Pan-African leaders in 1963 when they created the Organization of African Unity. During that meeting, they demanded the creation of an Africa that spoke with one voice, an Africa that was united. That journey is yet to be finished. What is happening in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger, is just the beginning of a revolution that is way past due for Africa. Africa must unite. And Burkina Faso has shown us the way. They have opened the doors. They have shown us that the bully can be defeated. That no more shall we continue to give up our lunch. That we too need to eat. And therefore, there is no negotiating with the bully. The bully had to go, and Burkina Faso showed us how to do it. So, Mr. President, I bring you your children, descendants of the formerly enslaved. They have waited over 400 years to return the spirits of their ancestors back home to Africa. When the children of Africa were taken out of Africa as slaves, all they ever wanted to do was to come back home to Africa. Each and every one of them that you see, many of them are coming to Africa for the first time. They're bringing with them the spirits of their ancestors to put them to rest here in Burkina Faso. And that's mission number one. Mission number two, we have watched you, Mr. President. You stand for everything that we have hoped for in an African man. Courageous, fearless, and in their faces. France, unapologetically, you told France, pack your bags and go home. You, Mr. President, and the people of Burkina Faso have done it, and we have a responsibility to support you. You have over 300 million African diaspora who are looking up to you. We are here to show you that we are with you. We support you. We are behind you. And we will not let you down. Many of us were told, don't go to Burkina Faso. It's a war-torn country. Guns all over the street. Mr. President, we want you to know that the more they told us not to go to Burkina Faso, the more we ran to Burkina Faso. No one tells them not to go to Europe, to their countries of origin. Therefore, no one will tell us not to come home to Burkina Faso. So mission number 2 is to let you, Mr. President, know that you and the citizens of Burkina Faso have done all the heavy lifting. The least we can do is to support you. So we are here. Our third mission is to see what can we do, Mr. President, to play our part in building the Burkina Faso we want.
Comrade fighters, for freedom, for sovereignty, and real independence, hello. Let us give thanks to God who allowed this day, day 11, to take place, and that we could meet in this bowl of the Palais des Sports to discuss the future of our homeland. Following your decision on May 25 to entrust us with the destiny of our homeland for 5 more years, be grateful for it. We do not see this as a mandate, but we understood it as a message that was given to us. And the message was very well received. And we will do everything to always earn your trust. Allow me also to pay a vibrant tribute to all these defense forces, these internal security forces, our valiant volunteers for the defense of the homeland, and all these populations who live in these areas with a strong security challenge, who are standing up. We pay tribute to them and we say thank you for all the sacrifices made for our homeland. I ask you that we can therefore observe a minute of silence to honor the memory of all those who lost their lives in this fight. Thank you. May the souls of the deceased rest in peace, and may the injured recover. Comrades, the emotion is great, of course, but allow me to articulate my remarks in 3 phases. The first phase will concern the stage from which I will explain to you how we see this world. The second phase, we will devote ourselves to explaining to you why we must continue to fight. And then the most important step would be to briefly outline the vision for the future, if I can put it that way. During these 20-some months spent at the head of state, we have had to meet several politicians from all sides. We met hundreds of diplomats from all sides. We met businessmen from all over the world. We have been open to all these exchanges, to all these discussions, to be able to learn from the world, to be able to understand the world. And today, I think that the opportunity is very good for me to be able to explain to you what conclusions we have drawn from all these meetings that we have had with politicians from all continents, diplomats from all the continents. It's very important. The conclusion we have drawn is very important, and it should allow you to understand the world. Because often in our countries, we do not have this perspective of being able to have access to certain people who will teach you a lot of things through their behavior, through their words, and also by telling you how they see us. Comrades, God created the world with all that there is in terms of happiness, misfortune, good, evil, humans, genies, animals, and everything that goes with it. But we humans have decided to make the world something else. Among the imperialists, they have a vision of the world that I will explain to you. The world is a triangle for them. You will see the triangle in most of their badges. Maybe you don't understand, but the world can be summed up in a triangle. For them, at the top of the triangle is the empire of good. And the empire of good is them. It is prosperity. It is everything that is positive. It is they who have the right to all that is happiness in this world. It is they who have the right to all wealth. It is to them to impose their way of seeing the world. It is up to them to impose their vision, their way of life. 2. This is why, during colonization or their conquest, I would say they came to our lands and they said that they discovered our lands because for them, we are savages. We have nothing like them, actually. So they called us natives, and they are the people. They arrogate all the rights to themselves. And for them, the world must work the way they want it to. It's simple. I'll take a few examples. Look through their film. They have prepared the minds of their people to make them understand that they are the best. Aspect, who among us has not treated Chinese products as Shintox products, as we like to call them, bad products? But today I can tell you that we are all wrong because China has a fairly advanced level of technology. And it is in China that most of these countries come to obtain their supplies, put their mark on it, and resell it to us as their property. Look around you. Our entrepreneurs who are in the construction industry will not say the opposite. All their machines today are Chinese. Those who carry out transport will not say otherwise. They lied to us because we traveled around the world a bit in these 20 months to look for companies, to look for factories. And we understood that everything was coming back there. But through their communication, they led us to hate all Chinese products, to want us to understand that what is good came from them. Not necessarily anyway. It's simple. Go back in time. To better understand what I would say, we need to go back in time a little. And I hope that some people will read about the Tsars, the Mongol conquests, the Persian, Turkish, and Ottoman empires. Read their story, you will understand why the world is like this. At the base of the triangle, there are two empires. On one side, the evil empire, according to them, and the slave empire on the other side. This is how they see the world. Who do they call the evil empire? Which I just cited the origin of right away. And I told you to go back in time, go read it. You will understand why they are the evil empire in their eyes. They are fighting the evil empire. For them, the evil empire must disappear. For them, the evil empire embodies the devil. They communicate and they make it clear to their people that way. This is why, after the Second World War, in the 1980s, I would take the case of Russia, where all the stratagems were implemented to collapse it with President Gorbachev. In the United States, it was President Ronald Reagan who was in charge. Three main stratagems caught our attention. So they went to Saudi Arabia to ask them to lower the price of oil from 35 to 7 to collapse the Russian economy. Along with this, the second ploy, don't forget something. These same people who have just left Afghanistan, supposedly saying they were fighting the Taliban. The Taliban were received by President Ronald Reagan at the White House. They were armed by the CIA. The famous Stinger ground-air missiles were delivered to the Taliban to fight the Russians. And later, they come to supposed to fight them. Go figure it out. The third ploy was a bluff. The IDS project, Star Wars. Read. You will understand why they got President Gorbachev to create the Polos project, which broke Russia. Once Russia collapsed, those who claimed to be from the empire began to gloat, until this team came along with Vladimir Putin to try to bring Russia back to the surface. The evil empire. The evil empire, according to them, suffered greatly. Look at Iran today. All the possible sanctions, and for this, they put a cliché in mind. The African is easy to manipulate. He is only emotion. They will always find an African to fight against his brother. And it's always been like that. Through communication, they made you hate your own skin color. In our cultures and in many cultures in Burkina Faso, mourning was symbolized by the color blue. When a woman loses her husband, she therefore wore blue-colored outfits to mourn for a given time. They are the ones who came to tell you that black symbolizes mourning, the devil, mediocrity, everything that is bad. And unfortunately, we have swallowed this so much that when we grieve, we also put ourselves in black. We need to wake up. We need to wake up, because this is the cliché they have in mind. They are the empire of good, others are the empire of evil, and we are the empire of slaves. This is how the imperialists see the world. You must understand this. And here, I am going to rant against certain intellectuals who continue to want to preach for the imperialists. Are they ignoring this part of the story? I'm not inventing anything. It's been declassified. You will find everything I said in the library or everywhere on the search engines. Haven't these intellectuals read that? Do they not know the history of this world? Perhaps it is dishonesty or a few dollar bills that leads them to always preach for the imperialists. Our intellectuals must be able to preach at all times, to raise awareness among our people, our popular masses, so that they understand where they come from and how they are seen by the imperialists. Let's take the history of a few wars. You followed the Iraq War, a big lie that was invented, supposedly about possession of weapons of mass destruction. Some senators in the United States did everything to have the evidence. They didn't get it. Remember that several people resigned from the CIA after this war. Evidence has been invented everywhere. Western secret services helped them fabricate evidence. And we remember that the same Niger was accused in his time by setting up a false agreement, a false contract for the sale of uranium to Iraq. This is the same process that they wanted to bring about last time for supposedly Niger selling uranium clandestinely to Iran. That they had no proof. Even the United Nations ultimately found that there was no tangible proof of the presence of weapons of mass destruction. But they had their objective, which was to destroy Iraq. They destroyed Iraq. They created the Islamic State, just like they created the Taliban in the 80s, the armies, equipping them, and then they pretend to come and fight them. Understand the game. It's gone on for too long. We need to wake up and understand all this and become aware of our situation and fight for our future. This whole war was invented passing through Iraq, Syria, Libya, with the aim of destabilizing the world for their benefit, because no one should be able to match them. This is what we are experiencing today in the Sahel also, that they have imposed on us, because they will always find black people who will get excited and who will take up arms against their black brothers. This is what we are experiencing. They never left this model. Unfortunately, many people agree with them. Because of a few dollar bills, they sell themselves much cheaper to the enemy, to the imperialist, and they begin to fight their brothers.
African diaspora are all people of African descent living outside Africa. The 55 African heads of states understand very clearly that in order for Africa to take its rightful place on the world stage, in order for sustainable development to come to Africa, the African diaspora must be front and center of that conversation. So it is precisely why I'm here to have a conversation with you all, my fellow brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. As you all know, I was appointed by Chairman Zuma, the former chair of the African Union. And currently, our new chair is His Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat. He took office 2 years ago. Both of them are also very clear about the need for the African diaspora to participate in the development of Africa. Madam Zuma, on my last conversation with her, she jokingly said, you know, my sister, the African diaspora are a very diverse population. Unfortunately, children of Africa who don't really get along, who don't understand each other, who don't like each other sometimes. But be it as it may, she did have hope that if we continue to engage each other, if we continue to understand each other, maybe, just maybe, we would see enough reason to come together, put aside our differences, and speak with one voice, one continent, one Africa. So that is why I am here. And in order for us to begin to understand each other, in order for us to begin to engage each other in a meaningful conversation, first we must ask ourselves the question, how did we get here? How did Africa end up where Africa is? Allow me to take you to 1884, Berlin Conference. From November of 1884 to February of 1885, our colonizers met to discuss how to make sure that Africa and its children are forever defeated and dominated. Prior to 1884, they were going into Africa in a very haphazard way. They started stealing from each other what they had stolen from the Africans. They were getting ready to have a European war on the African soil. The then Chancellor of Germany, Bismarck, realizing that what was getting ready to happen, called in his sidekick, then King of Belgium, Leopold, and said, we are getting ready to have a problem. Could we please call all the colonizers to come and meet in Berlin, Germany? Let's discuss, let's organize ourselves to see to it that we can effectively loot from the Africans. So it is they met between November of 1884 and 1885 precisely to make sure Africa and its children are forever defeated and dominated. The way they did it is by chopping Africa up into the tiny little economies that we see today. Countries like Burundi, Togo, Djibouti, Central African Republic, Malawi, Mozambique, the list goes on. Pretty much all the African countries that you see today. That was by design. That was to see to it that Africa was forever defeated. That these small economies are economies that cannot survive on their own, or should they survive, they are easy to destabilize at the push of a button. That was 124 years ago. Fast forward 2019, nothing has changed. The jokes say, when they were strategizing and breaking up Africa and drawing these arbitrary boundaries, a husband and wife who were in bed in Malawi, by the time they woke up, the husband was in Zambia and the wife was in Malawi. That's how arbitrary the divisions were. Picture yourself driving from Zambia. You're speaking English. Pretty soon, you're in Angola. You're speaking Portuguese. Pretty soon, you're in the DRC. You're speaking French. Pretty soon, you are in Equatorial Guinea. You're speaking Spanish. Keep moving north. You're now in the southern part of Cameroon. You're speaking English. You go up north, you're speaking French. Soon after that, you are in Nigeria. You're speaking English. It was such an arbitrary process. A process that brought maximum division among people who were once the same. We were powerful kingdoms. The countries of Africa that we know today, prior to 1884, they did not exist as these countries. The countries that we are today are a creation of the colonizers to see to it that we are forever defeated and dominated. To them I say colonizers, mission accomplished, because Berlin Conference remains alive and well. Now, let's assume this world is a boxing game. Even the rules of the game, no. Heavyweights belong to the heavyweights. Middleweights belong to the middleweights. Lightweights belong to the lightweights. You don't take a lightweight boxer or a wannabe boxer and throw them in the same ring with the heavyweight. Well, African countries are not even lightweight boxers. They are wannabe boxers who are being put in the same boxing ring with heavyweights. You say, you got to understand that Burundi has the same sovereignty as China. Central African Republic has the same sovereignty as India. So when it comes to negotiating country to country, little Djibouti will stand next to China. Little Burundi will stand next to India. And when China beats up Djibouti, the world says, Djibouti, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you able to take care of your people? Such a small economy. Its population is growing, but its land mass is not. Djibouti can only do so much. The small economies can only do so much. And even those that have tried to survive, they are so easy to stabilize. Before you know it, there's conflict in those countries. And next thing you know, everything is falling apart. Such is the status of our Africa, ladies and gentlemen. It is so important to me that we understand our Africa from the root cause. So as if Berlin Conference was not enough, when the colonizers were leaving the continent between 1958 and 1961, France did something that was just downright terrible. Made the African leaders sign what they call the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. France made the Francophone countries sign the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. Allow me to highlight a few of the items in the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. And I urge all of you to Google it and read it. And if that does not disgust you, I don't know what will. First, the French said, well, you see, we built a few schools, a few roads, a few hospitals, taught you about the fork and knife and sitting on a table and eating with utensils. We're going to call that the colonial debt. And for that you shall pay to perpetuity. In addition, you will deposit 85% of your bank reserves with the Minister of Finance, the French Minister of Finance. Collectively, the Minister of Finance, the French Minister of Finance will take all your deposits. It was 85% back then. It's now down to about 60. The French minister will invest that money in the French stock exchange under the French name. You may or may not know the returns. Today, France is taking out of Africa, Francophone Africa, over $500 billion. Over $500 billion. We, the Africans, the poor countries, we're giving France over $500 billion a year. Year in, year out. And no one is talking about it. The latest figures are saying for every $14 billion that France takes out of Africa, by the time they finish investing it, they're realizing upwards of $300 billion for every $14 billion. So in actuality, France is taking out of Africa trillions of dollars year in, year out. should any of those countries wish to access some of their own money that they deposited with France, they have to submit their own financial reports for the country. And if approved, they can only access up to 20% of that money as a loan at commercial interest rates. Figure that one out. That is our reality. It gets better. They were also told that if you need any military equipment, you can only purchase it from France. Your military can only be trained by France. That France will have military presence in your own country and can invade you without notice should they feel French interests are being violated. Language of instruction shall be French. All your minerals discovered, yet to be discovered, France has the first right of refusal. All the contracts, big contracts, private and public, French companies have the first right of refusal. And my brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, if you were to go home and run for president, and your first day in office, your chief of staff comes to you and says, oh, by the way, Mr. President, Madam President, before you start, I must read you the do's and don'ts as stipulated by the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. And your chief of staff reads this to you. What power do you have? This is precisely what our colonizers wanted. To leave us in a position that no matter how hard we try, trying to get a leg up is mission impossible. But in those incidences that we're able to, regardless, because that's who we are as Black people, we are very easy to destabilize. Others might say, but Ambassador, why haven't the African leaders done something about this horrible pact? Well, they have. In the past, it's very well documented. Of the 60-something coups that took place in Africa, 7 of them are documented as having been orchestrated by France, and 7 of those involved an African leader being assassinated during a coup. And those coups were done precisely because those African leaders, those Pan-African leaders, were trying to pull out of the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. Now, there have been other coups that were created by just mercenaries who were running around trying to destabilize African countries, and always because the African countries would have discovered a natural resource. And they created those coups. So while the locals are fighting, thrown into a civil war, they will be siphoning that natural resource. We know the game now. We've seen them play the game. So it's not like there was no attempt to pull back. But the reality is, even now, when leaders have tried to push back on certain issues, next thing you know, there's conflict in that country. And who are they using for the conflict? Us. The people who are going to be toy-toying on the streets, it's us, the Africans. And we are going on the streets fighting somebody else's war because we simply do not know. Let me bring it home, for example. If, let's say, a Francophone African leader decides to pull out of the pact, by the way, they also print the money, the CFA. They print the CFA for all the Francophone African countries. France no longer even use the CFA, but they print it gladly for the African countries. France is using the euro. So if a leader starts wanting to be too smart, all they have to do is stop printing the money. And next thing you know, the locals are getting their paychecks, they're going to the bank, they line up, there is no physical cash. It's that easy to destabilize Africa. Food in most of the Francophone countries, close to 50% in some countries, the food is coming from France. If you start acting like you're too smart, they simply stop sending food. And before you know it, the shelves are empty. And the locals start demonstrating. And they'll be demonstrating and blaming the president. I am not saying our African presidents don't have any blames. Nobody's without blame. No country is perfect. No leader is perfect. I get that. But what I'm saying is, in order for us to make sure when we demonstrate, when we complain, we are complaining about issues that are truly matter to us, not issues that we are being thrown into because somebody else has a different agenda. They're basically throwing a shiny object in one direction, and we run after the shiny object when the real issue is over here. So what I'm talking about is like Africa is like a tree. The problems of Africa, such as youth unemployment, poverty, disease, starvation, those are the leaves on a tree. They're drying up. Today, this country has the problem. Tomorrow is that country. Tomorrow is... Those are the issues. They're leaves. They're going to come and go. The branches, they're going to die, but they'll come back season after another. But until you address the issues of the root, this tree will always be a problem. For Africa, the root has to do with the Berlin Conference. We must be clear that the Berlin Conference is alive and well. A decision that was made 124 years ago remains alive and well today. In addition, after the Berlin Conference, they did something just as deplorable. They set out to let the Africans believe everything African was bad and everything European was better and more desirable. That's the rule of divide and conquer. That's the legacy of colonization. Have you ever wondered why, when you try to go home at the airport, if you travel with our brothers and sisters who happen to be Caucasian, they get better treatment by our own people? I was trying to go through the airport, I won't mention which country in Africa. I called the porter 3 times. The man would come and hang around. The minute I look another way, he's gone. I later found out from one of the porters that, we are looking for the white people because they pay more. My own people are discriminating against me. Thanks to the Berlin Conference. Thanks to the legacy of colonization. Thanks to the rule of divide and conquer. Those are some of our realities. How do you address that? We must understand it. We must realize on an individual basis that we are suffering from this affliction. This affliction that is called the legacy of colonization and the legacy of slavery. Because for true healing to take place, for sustainability to take place, it has to start with the conversation with the image in the mirror. So when it's all said and done, our understanding of what is really going on in Africa, what is really making Africa end up where Africa is where we need to begin. So for today, I ask you to understand the Berlin Conference and its relevance to you today. Its relevance in your family today. Its relevance to your country and to your continent and to the world wherever black people are. So we got 2 issues, the legacy of slavery, the legacy of colonizations, 2 demons that we must fight, 2 afflictions that we must accept that we suffer from, and let's make every effort to defeat those demons within us in order for us to truly represent our Africa with full understanding of the issues. So as we look for a solution, our minds are clear and our minds are in the right place. Allow me to take a moment to then take you to 1963. Our Pan-African leaders realizing that in order for Africa to move forward, Africa must speak with one voice, one continent, one country, one heart, one mind, one soul. So they met in Addis Ababa in 1963, and they created the OAU, Organization of African Unity. It was an attempt to regroup and undo the boundaries that were imposed upon us. Unfortunately, when they went to Addis Ababa, they were still divided. We had the Casablanca group who were Pan-Africanists who says African Union now, Africa for the Africans. But unfortunately, there were only 7 of them. Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. And the rest of the African countries were the nationalists. They were the Monrovia group. They said, no, let's go slow. They won. We often say, when the Pan-Africanists lost in 1963, Africa lost. 55 years later, we're still going slow. All is not lost, however. Last year, 2018, our leaders came together in Kigali. They agreed on a decision which is now called the African Continental Free Trade Area. This agreement, they are saying we must speak with one voice. We must negotiate with one voice as a bloc, as one Africa. Because as Africa, We are a heavyweight and we belong with heavyweight boxers. We belong with the big boys. There is parity there. This is how we begin to destroy the Berlin Conference. And of the 52 heads of states who have signed on to this, we only need 22 ratifications. I'm glad to tell you today that we're sitting at 21 ratifications. We have only one more ratification for the African Continental Free Trade Area to become the law of the continent, and implementation is expected to begin in June of 2019. Now that's how we destroy the Berlin Conference. In addition, they also signed in March of last year the protocols for the free movement of people, where they are saying unanimously, the African heads of states, the children of Africa must live and work wherever they choose. That too is in the process of being ratified. Over 30 heads of states have signed, and I believe we are sitting at about 3 or 4 ratifications. Already, regionally, the leaders are loosening the requirements to get into their countries. A lot of countries now are visa on arrival. There's a lot of good news coming out of your Africa. And I'm here to share with you that we must be part of that change. We must be part of that vibrancy that is Africa. You see, everybody else around the world is strategizing on how to take advantage of this new Africa whose doors are swinging wide open. The only people who are not strategizing to move into your Africa and claim what is rightfully yours are us black people. Why can't we be like the rest of the other diaspora in this world? Ask for the voices of Indian diaspora, loud and clear. Chinese diaspora, loud and clear. Irish diaspora, loud and clear. Mexicans, Jews. But when you ask for the voices of the black people, you might as well go to the graveyard. We are missing in action. This is where we are not only failing ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come. We have got to change this. We have got to come together just like other ethnic groups and speak with one voice. We must realize that our sheer survival depends on us coming together and speaking with one voice as, like I would like to say, the beautiful, intelligent, sophisticated, highly adaptable, and totally indestructible Mother Africa's children. You see, we as Africans, as the origin of humanity, the continent, the inheritors of the continent with everything and anything the world needs, we have every reason to stand on top of the highest mountain and proclaim to the world who we are, the indestructible children of Africa. Mother Africa is calling. I have no doubt in my mind that all of you, after having had a serious conversation with the image in the mirror, you are going to come together and with a united voice and in a resounding way, you shall let the world know that the children of Africa are going home. Let's sing the best melody the world has ever heard as we come together, not as 55 African countries, not as 1.27 billion Africans on the continent, not as 400 million blacks around the globe, but as children of one Mother Africa, singing in unison that beautiful melody as we waltz our way across the Atlantic back home to Africa.
Hi guys, welcome back once again. I hope you've watched the full clip. And this clip we have all seen Dr. Arikana and President Ibrahim Traore. They are welcoming all black Americans to come back to the ancestral land, to come back to Africa, to come back to Burkina Faso. They have really welcomed them very well, and they have told them to come and feel like they are home, because you have all seen how they have gone through a lot of depression, a lot of people that are being misused, especially black people in the United States. We have all seen how they are being illegally deported back to the country, because President Donald Trump said that he will do a mass deportation of all illegal immigrants, whether you are criminal or not. And President Ibrahim Traore, he has truly come out and he is saying, all black, you are welcome back home, because this is the ancestral land, this is where they came from, this is where they were taken during the early slave trade. Because do you remember during the early slave trade, there's a lot of black people who were taken from Africa, from Congo, from Nigeria, from Angola, everywhere in Africa, and they were taken to these Western countries to work as slaves. And this is the reason why there's a lot of black people in Western countries. And President Ibrahim Traore is encouraging the black unity, is encouraging black to unite one another. This is the reason why they are welcoming them back home. And one thing I really love about Dr. Arikana, she's just that kind of one woman who truly fight for the right of black people, who truly fight for the right of African people and Caribbean people. So they are welcoming them back home, and they are telling them to feel like they are at their home, because this is the ancestral land. And this is a very good news, this is a very good move, and I would like all the Africans president, all the African leaders to welcome all black Americans that are going through a lot in these Western countries, because here in Africa there is a lot of big land that where they can live. And I really feel like, or I would really like, if these black Americans will accept this invitation to come back home, to come back to the ancestral land, because here is your home. Come and unite with your black people, so that at least we can improve a lot of things. At least if unite together as one, we'll be stronger, we will be unshakable, and we will do a lot of things. One thing that I would really like these people to just see is like to see what Burkina Faso it's really doing. It's really doing great. We have all seen how Burkina Faso it has really improved, just because President Ibrahim Traore removed all colonial system in Burkina Faso, and they are enjoying their full independence. We have all seen how Burkina Faso they are really enjoying. They are doing a very great, and I would like all African leaders to do what Ibrahim Traore is doing, to welcome all black people to be justice, to serve their people with rights, with no corruption. Because in Burkina Faso, President Ibrahim government doesn't have any form of corruption, and this is what we would like all African leaders to have. Congratulations to Dr. Arikana, and we're really praying for them. Dr. Arikana and Ibrahim Traore, God to protect them, so that they can at least they can continue educating youths about what's really happening, about black history, and it will be okay. So guys, if it was the first time you're coming across my video, don't forget to like this video, subscribe and share. Thank you so much for your time. One love. May God bless you.